Okay, well, I'll round up the segment by talking about my third and final player, and it is a player close to my heart because he shares a nationality with me, and that is, of course, Ben Gannon-Doak, who is the Scottish winger at Bournemouth. People might remember that he recently made a move from Liverpool's youth academy to Bournemouth, and he didn't really get going last season. Bournemouth were obviously kind of in the ascendancy, doing very, very well. Um, I think he was a wee bit knocked sideways in terms of development because of the very sudden and dramatic rise of Ryan, who kind of joined from, who's the Brazilian right winger, who went on to start for Brazil at the World Cup. So, you can't really argue with that. And then Junior Krupić as well, who's been, heralded as the next kind of Thierry Henry. So he's got a lot. He had those two players kind of overshadowing last season. However, it's worth bearing in mind that Bournemouth have kind of seen two wingers move on this summer in Hamad Traore and Sinestra. And I think, off the back of, I thought it was a very good World Cup for Gannon-Doak. There's very, very few positives to talk about from Scotland at the World Cup. There's very, very few young players in that Scotland national team, let alone young players who thrived. And Gannon-Doak was certainly one of them. He was happy going toe to toe with Brazilian defenders, Moroccan defenders, Haitian defenders. And I suspect Marco Rosa probably was watching on his couch during that, thinking this guy might be quite useful for us going forward. So I just think in terms of opportunities, there's more space there for him at Bournemouth. But I also think Gannon-Doak showed that World Cup that he's a very good young player. There's not really any speculation about him leaving the club this summer, which I think we would have known about by now if Bournemouth had no intentions of playing him this season. So,
Mm.
yeah, I think Gannon-Doak certainly want to keep an eye on. And I should mention he is under 21. He's 20 years old with a market value of 15 million euros. So I suspect we'll see that number jump up because he can play on the left, he can play on the right, and I think he's going to be a very, very valuable player for Bournemouth as they take on a number of competitions this season.
hmm Yeah, really interesting player. Once again, someone that I don't think comes to mind right away. And I think we've done a really good job here, just thinking a little bit outside the box, Stefan, because Ben Gannon-Doak. I mean, Bournemouth is such an interesting club. I'm really curious to see how they're going to move on from the Iraola era to now the Marco Rosa era, right? Very different managers in some respects too, in a club under US ownership that has done really well in kind of developing young players and really establishing themselves in the Premier League over the last few years. And I think it's becoming increasingly also a place where young players like to go to and, make that next step. And so I can really see him moving on because we don't know yet 100% sure what's happening with Ryan. If he's going to stay or not, right?
Yeah. Krupi
So
too, he's been heavily linked with a number of
yeah,
clubs, so that front line could be
yeah,
very different in a month or so's time for sure.
absolutely.
Um,
So
but
really
yeah,
fascinating.